stand line. 764 35 31. Stand line 1.
Is this going live?
Okay, because I'm not getting in. Okay, please. Let's stop the side trees. So we're not even doing it, you know, so it is. You're going to be doing it in the media. Okay? You're going to be doing it in the media. So you're trying to remove one inside. And then you go, you're going to have to start doing it. This is the time you're going to be sitting over here. So if they're really going to ask questions, you're going to use this method. That's what you're going to do. Trust still holds until how the control the possible management. Yes. So yeah, get the proper signal, you maybe have to go to people. Huh? You stress yourself and just, there must be common sense to serve it. I don't like to overtry anybody. Oh, the box need a direct line. Fine, Terry, you're not a technician. But if you can dial 9 and get the number, I'm trying to get Terry. But if I don't dial 9, I don't get Terry. But if I dial 9, I can get Terry. So what would you do? So you put 9 in front of the number. That can't work. The box need a direct line. I'm saying, give it common sense. If I dial 9 and I can get the person, that means it will work.
What's can we see?
Right, that's why I'm telling you, so yeah, well, go ahead. He wanted it not to work for to tell me. That's it. I never used the box. But if they're not going to be a direct, if you have to put a number in for all, you will put a number in front. The box will still connected to the ABS. 1, 2. Yeah. It's connected over into radio. Huh? So this is argument works. You didn't see that again. You say no. But you need a better plan. Let's say you don't need anything but a connect. If you do, you know, you want to connect, you don't need it. Okay, you work, right? I can't do that. You can't do that. But I never even do that. You do common sense. If you try to tell you, I'm just going out and I'm going to have to dial 9. So they put 9 for the number on the dial. And when you connect, have the same connection. It's simple. You got to return it. You know, I see you. You see, I take out the edit completely.
No, I mean technical work.
Oh.
That's what I say. You can tell you the edit.
Okay. Smart. And I'm telling you this type. Smart board. I like to hold this to the computer. I'm thinking of it.
Gas for test.
Huh? No, they ain't been gas for that.
Gas for test last night. You go?
Yeah.
So
you don't want to VIP man. VIP man.
How can you do before? Well, because we don't know after that. So you got any?
Yeah, so that won't be. So look at the time. Don't miss it, man. Look at the show tonight. Tomorrow, tonight, you stay there up in the court tomorrow morning.
So what's the whole day?
Tell me. I think you have content for them TV. No? They tell me.
When you get it done.
When you had it inside.
You want to see if it's right.
That's what I was saying, man.
Every day we go to
Yes, sure. I can't tell you give me the number because you make an answer.
But I have to pay number.
No, but I say by you, so you can't
How
tell me
you
the
know?
number.
How you don't know I say that?
You know, I mean, I said that because now it's out to me. Yeah. Sure, we got it, right? Good afternoon. Today, Mr. Garber, this is yellow. Then TV, highway. You supposed to have something yes, I something but you know, when can we go? Say again? So when can we remember the time that I spoke about this is on the Sunday on the channel.
You may come tonight. I'm telling you right now. I don't like it.
Oh. No problem. Hi. Yeah. Two ladies. Okay, well, let me make movements now. And let me make movement and one okay. Turn on the camera, zoom over to the Tell me if you're getting audio. Hi, this is just a test 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Come on. Testing 1, 2. 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. You hear the audio?
Yeah.
Okay. Akim, zoom out and zoom in. You hear the audio clear?
No.
Okay. Next now, let me make somebody walk across. Akim, walk across the camera there.
Go ahead. You are smart enough.
Walk across the camera. Say again? Overmodulating, yeah, that's true. Go ahead. Is it okay now? 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 Low that is good. Testing 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing 1, 2.
Yes.
Is that okay now?
Yes. Check.
Hi.
Make check 1, 2.
What quality are now?
We're setting on myself.
Yeah.
720.
720.
Yeah.
That's the height one for that, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Get that. Any light on it?
Yeah.
We just put on a light.
Okay, so we get now I'm looking at that. Then let's start from the mic then up till the keep this up.
I can't say something in mic.
Mic check 1, 2. Testing.
Yeah,
Mic.
speak out on the mic.
He's talking now. Go ahead.
Mic check 1, 2. Testing. Check. Mic test 1.
Yeah.
You know, it's too bad because remember they're not moving around. He's sitting and
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. And it is so white.
You white?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so white background.
The whole in your white. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. That's that.
Okay. So
We'll go with that.
yeah, we're up and running. Okay then, no problem. Sorry for turn on our turn please.
No, do you know you want to about that? Okay, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not our one song.
Yeah, we're charging.
That is our 50 something.
In the locker, somebody to learn.
You can lock them off now?
Yeah.
What? You rolling with? On the switch. What is there, man? Overheat and bother with this.
Can plug out the light a little bit, okay? Plug out the light a little bit. What is microphone out this one?
The consultant have a voice and opening.
The consultant. After management, I let manage the meeting with the consultant.
But if I want to do the intro,
Why they might bring each other?
yeah.
Yeah, we get them fixed. You will.
Hello?
Yeah, I had to plug them in.
Hi.
You will.
Yeah, because I'm the same battery. You said that battery run for 9 hours.
None go so. Tell you one
One
of
say hour, one something.
one little less than an hour.
They must not charge them.
No. Got enough. So use the camera and then put them back.
So just use the camera and just put them back. So
you need to go up island again.
I'll go. One say 1 hour and the next one say what?
This one is 64.
One say 64,
One pound 98.
one say 98, he said. Is that long? Now how the Sony battery how by
How long this will go for?
see that it will run up on the press lamp.
How come?
That maybe an hour.
Yeah.
Oh well them
No more battery there?
No more battery over there? No one more. So then
One wire and then this one has 2 battery.
huh?
Yeah, charge.
Nobody charge.
Put one for power then, put one for power.
Oh yeah.
But you know you had to stop with them. I ain't go up now. No one to show in fire you.
Yeah, I come foolish. Nobody can use
Make
it.
a charge until they
Show in
start.
fire you. Show in fire you because you're not doing the right thing.
Well, what's your flavor?
Yeah, final pause so that close, you know, from this, you know. Okay, well, this one, but this one you can
Yeah, that one.
final one, that close, you know. Maybe you can use it now.
Take up the hot seat. I do remodels.
You just, well, can just give it
Social
one
security,
one go
yeah.
bad, one go
Social security,
out, so
you
you
know,
have time, because the next camera will run.
This building, yeah. So security in the number?
Yeah.
No.
Why?
BC, the door bar, the sign or something.
Oh, I mean.
You too. Okay, no problem.
What's going on?
Good day.
I'm sitting here.
You sitting here? Yeah?
You just left the
Or you there control something?
No, I was sitting here.
Let's go.
Just do it.
Yes, sir. The hell of it is.
So the battery will be charging there?
No.
Well,
You will charge
That's
up.
how they use power thing. This is part of the battery. We'll have a little when they put the camera and put them to charge.
Oh, yes, murder.
Where is your basically one and
Carry
smoke
that,
using. Yeah, but it's supposed
But
to
you get that, but now,
No, but hey,
Eh?
hold on. You can't tell her I'm tired all of them. You tell her I'm tired. Say, no one has time for you tired.
really?
And she start cussing herself and so.
Yeah.
Say, I'm enough for tired.
When they say-
When
you don't feel good to say, oh, come on, come on.
I can't go bad and cook your mother right.
And you eat the other food I did.
Carry that alone, you finish, right? Carry that alone.
Exactly.
Why I tell me? Now there's a plug-in, you can charge the battery.
No,
That's
that's
the
not
times
power.
design that plug-in.
Some cameras can. Which one?
Some
panels.
Yeah.
The which one?
NX do that.
The NX cam?
Yeah.
Hopefully me and that's when we tell me when I NX cam, maybe choose
NX70.
Eh?
NX70 you
Not
have.
the 70. Yeah, new file.
NX70 charge by the battery.
Alright, Akeem,
Oh,
shift the camera a little bit closer to the wire now. Stretch too much.
I can't. Can't hold.
Right. And then
You in front of the press. Get out the
Exactly.
battery.
Exactly.
No.
No. Put the battery in there,
the
that's the
battery,
same
when the
thing
battery,
there.
when you plug out that, when, if one the camera die, you bring the charger to.
nobody
But
can
not
sit.
there.
That's why I don't want nobody sit on me.
You say you want.
No, me tell you I don't want nobody sit on me.
No, put it to the back, do you then?
Yeah, I don't want nobody sit on me. Yeah, but say, run the sub, not go over the road.
One day, so that means you can sit on your then.
No, hold on.
So when you shot the
I
fire,
have my head on, I don't know what I'm doing.
so when you shot the fire,
It's the 5 o'clock about it, you jump with the house now.
So who
Before.
would do
Can you imagine that? I ain't 5 o'clock
Who will
something.
report fire?
you,
Burford.
You?
I'm Burford.
Who's birthday?
The new man from Jamaica.
I'm
Consultant slash manager.
The Jamaican man.
manager slash
Asshole.
host
Oh, God.
director.
But I play for that enough. What do you mean? A pole? The pole. You never hear about that?
Yeah, he seems like he's old. He's
Let's
old.
say he do a poll last week with Gaston and Lester. Who will be the next leader?
What you say? What you say?
I didn't watch it. That's what I tell me. You get what?
Yeah, you're in the right room. You
I'm
just
just checking.
to see how many people are here.
You get what?
Where we are so far?
You're from electricity?
No, I'm not.
What is it?
Where from, sir? Water? Oh, you're lucky.
Gone here.
You know what their favorite start now?
Start tell you.
My vehicle was parked. Well, the company vehicle was
Tell
parked.
them
Yeah,
what
water
Yeah.
there. Okay.
Yeah, you are watching?
And you know, they put the bill inside the handle for the door that you open, the driver open. Suppose now, the driver's side door can't open
Your car?
for the company vehicle.
Oh?
And they pass, they just stand by the door because it was parked outside.
Let's do this. It's a nice idea of 4 o'clock.
Until I
You know, and then
Antigua
back around, make it
everything.
8 o'clock.
So nobody here?
Because it is always
So all the people, if you know, if you know,
Yes, it's 12 o'clock now.
if you
12 o'clock. Me and before 12 o'clock.
You know, we're going to Sunday.
Huh?
We're going to Sunday.
So you know, we have to that's why you guys have one song because I'm young the person singer. And I have answered this card because of that.
Hello.
Hi. Yes.
Hello,
Yes.
Mr. Peters. You're on TV Chronicle, right?
Who?
I don't know. Caribbean Times. Oh gosh. Well, I know about these things here. I know about observing.
You mostly supposed to.
Me? No. I don't know who else is coming.
We just need the persons who.
I have any sandwich, finger food, anything?
Exactly, because you'll have us here out of lunch.
I was here since morning.
It's 3 o'clock. What time is lunch?
So that don't have no time, I don't eat no lunch.
You was here since 11 o'clock.
See?
I remember something. You said that you didn't.
Yeah, but come over
early, so I guess you would have prepared that.
Tell ABS that.
Tell who?
ABS.
We're not doing the press conference, yes. If we were doing it for them, they would.
Oh, snap.
Give me for the door, otherwise I'm going to tap on it. That home. Economics.
You know, for hooks.
These are new cameras.
Yeah. Pumpkin brand new.
I need to give you a more first. Of course.
Let me tell you, I don't know how we can get a water bill for $800 a minute and a water for about 3 weeks.
You don't say
I mean, tell them the truth.
You
Mr. Rodriguez, they don't even know
in
it.
the traffic.
There be some man and a man.
Were you chopping Rodriguez one time?
Who named so? Who named so? You name Rodriguez? No. I thought you were
Christian?
no, what, not Christian. What your name? What if, no,
Martin?
no, not Martin, man.
Roger?
Not yet.
Roger?
Make a man. No, no, call the name Natalia.
Philip Isaac?
The man in charge of the water and the electricity.
No. Lord.
Question.
Oh, make it hold on. Benjamin. I thought
Peter
you're
Benjamin?
No, you're Benjamin.
You're not responding to Sundays are the no
Yeah,
response.
take up one Yeah, but
Maybe it's a
no,
one.
if you want
No.
Yes,
We took from the box.
How? They got a pipe on?
Because the water
Pipe now.
No,
I guess it's my friend then.
because really, they're going to hit it from the side.
Yeah, but the streaming stuff to work.
Pipe, government pipe in really bad. You're going to find it like that. When they rock
Nothing miss out of
here come ahead. If I don't, I got that from
No, I just say
I don't know. Before did y'all enter the dress day competition? No. Right, how many ministers? I have no idea. How much what? Supposed to be well, I'm just a technician. One of the people come to Canada. They tell me, is it you read the Bible? The centurion, you just tell the centurion, centurion tells you this management, so you tell them go there and they go in. Yeah, you follow the centurion. Just one of them.
That's one way to look at it.
So what happened? I have to do that and then about a minute, 2 after.
Have Mike.
No.
Who tell you that?
The technician.
Okay, next time technician come to you and tell you something like that, tell them Rodriguez say, put in the ear valve in the line, right? Because I'm nonsense and tell you. Because
Yeah.
then tell them to put in another one. But the one, yes, is the ear valve underneath them, right? You want bigger one, for what you say is true. So tell them to put
They were flat for this one?
But listen,
That's it, and the plug look at tight, but you use a plug.
Charge me for the report, right? And Gerald is the spin meter. They did put the air valve in, all was good. Until somebody maliciously go mash up the air valve and leave them down. My neighbor, which is a nurse, come and see water running, call out it. They come, they block the polyglue, stop it. Nobody tells me nothing. For about 5 months, I was paying water bill every month. The reason why I wasn't complaining because where I live, I was not, you don't get water. Sometimes for 3 weeks, you don't get water. And for about 5 months, I'm getting a bill every month for 20 years. You know, that is just because they have the service. When I really charge them, the white use.
Mind shit on radio?
The meter reader wanted sound.
1 2 testing. 1 2 testing for sound clarity. Mic check testing. 1 2 testing. 1 2 1 2. Good stuff. All right.
I said, how did you get any water going to pay for bill? He said, let's see what happens. The service is like a long service. Run me over and go to Pali Blue, block off. Just like
But you know,
yeah. Couple of things. You know what happened? They put a new meter because I went to question. He called me, check it, and he said, wow. So don't worry. They come and put a new meter. And from the time they put the meter, because they are going through that, whoever really needed it, they take it out. Some give me about $800. Sorry. And I give them $1,200.
so the 800 no for sure.
Is that not?
That's very good. Good enough.
Alright, so
Up to now, that's the second one.
well, you can say I know. They just have a conversation. They give me a bill for around $81.
And then try to
It's better to book sign up. Yes.
You are the
Part of it? Engineer. He was actually last week.
Simon, this is from the south?
From the veteran.
Manchester Simon people? What become a man? I haven't seen him in a while.
I got South.
He lives in New Jersey. Okay.
How many ministers come on the side of the cell?
I said, who is you? Here's Rice.
How are you? Alright.
Oh, like last time. You know, like in I don't think it was
I responded to it.
I see 100 something. The battery is 120 something, that's all?
That's the problem. There's we have
Right, so that's your updated, the revised list I got
This morning.
I don't know
Still not the back end.
The back end, we got a proposal for the monies already. We spoke on Saturday to the president. Yeah.
Since you go in the back,
And then also that should we're not going for it tomorrow.
but I don't know.
You got the ratios now. It's alright. You got the ratios. Work on your ratios.
May I have a card? May I have a card? Yeah, because some users personal use.
Yeah, I heard them now. I just called it till I was going to be a couple of minutes later.
10 cents. Yeah, I'll tell you, that's what I do for this one. He said you want to then I'm going to then I'm going to
Right.
So you have some that and some that just look. You have some that and some that just look. Yeah, the power is on one the camera and the other is battery. So we have two battery for one and
You ready? So Robin, as soon as you're ready, Chief. As soon as you're ready. Yes.
remember what the camera.
You know, you were Elvis, right?
Yeah, they have SD card and
I know this pretty girl, man.
one of them have
I know this pretty girl, man. I know this, I know Nicole.
She works in iMobile.
Who's Nicole? I know her. She's from...
Okay,
She's at least
the one that was canceled.
Who's from here as well?
Well, no, I think she's just a...
No, yeah, that's not me.
Master of streaming online.
Yeah, I
10 and
That's your shit. Where Roger?
That's a good
radio 90.5.
Okay. Okay, all right, okay.
You in touch with them?
You invited everybody.
Okay, quick, run this.
Yes.
You people.
Okay, you go ahead.
Let me see him.
Andre.
Use this one as the main. See how far you can go. You can use the pole on this. Use the pole.
Finish. How about next to sorry.
Not again, to anybody? Comes about it. Comes about it.
You see? No, we have to plan for money here. We don't have the treasury. We have to make it in order to pay it.
You know me want to talk to me.
Yes, you know.
Two of these places are
These days, when I haven't seen them, make a left it to you.
It's something else, boy.
Make a left it to you. Hey, my buddy, how are you going?
Good.
Which millions do we have? We have
ABS and Caribbean driver.
And that's
friends on the observer still prefer to go on assumptions.
And that's how.
Talking about that today.
Huh?
We just talked about it this morning, right?
So
That's how they
I
are.
call Ryan and what's their story.
Okay.
And then they're gonna make things up, and then they're gonna what's it name?
We touch everybody.
Yep.
We'll call them minister. And we're ready to go when you're.
Is the DK not back?
Check that.
What they have here?
No. I mean,
One, two, test, 1, 2. Good? Yeah.
very much.
But don't get in the feed. No. We're not speaking to no statute today.
Right, well, I guess we'll have the.
Another 2 minutes.
Hi.
Yeah, sure.
We're trying to get the queue. We're trying to get the queue. Everything's up and running. Is it streaming up and running? We need the queue. And you know.
And yeah, we're gonna start it.
Yes. Because stand by. Go. I think I'm on your camera. This camera. I think I'm on yours.
Take a shot of him.
Hi.
The DG cussed me out today. He said, he got this food right there.
2 minutes?
We got throwing him back and forth. And I eventually had to call him and say, how big you depend on work. You know, I forget that the guy was trying for his athletes.
Oh, shit.
He said, oh, it depends on the man. That was my job to get the night of the man. The guy was going out, kind of just pushing him and standing off your position and all kind of craziness. We can't imagine that they had a little job to stand up to the game and say, Sherrod, you're in a position to tell her you can make your position be known and she see your face.
I hope you know.
No. it is indeed. Hello? Hi, from record. I have spoken to the GG and the PM, so the GG is spoken and the GG will make it up. Okay? But you see, the thing is, we have moved behind them. I call the GG myself. And so I think he and the PM would have spoken. The matter is resolved. Okay. But I guess we will ask you for a later this evening. There's a press conference. But we have, I did speak with the GG and the PM today to go behind her because I think she's just, a little petulant over egos. Yeah? So, don't worry. We've got in the past. Okay. I'll let you know. Who is this white one here? You.
Everything is ABS.
No.
Oh, okay.
One string camera.
Which white? No, oh, you're talking about everything there.
Yeah,
Oh, Kevin James. Modern man, get modern.
Yes, that's mine. Don't. I didn't know what color we have. My team will never let me know. Good comeback with this.
He has a red color. What is missing?
It's live.
It's going to be
You're going live?
Yeah. Yes. So I've been a big thing we did everything.
Hold on. Talk to you.
We go with so we have to step it up, you understand?
Yes.
We'll let the country know that we're serious. Totally agree with you. Attention. So we send out the news to come around, you capture the news story.
I'm with you, comrade.
Okay then. 5. Get set, people. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cue.
And a very good afternoon and a warm welcome to ABS TV 10 and ABS Radio 90.5 FM. I'm Garfield Burford coming to you live from the APUA head office, the Antigua Public Utilities Authority. We're broken into live programming on both radio and television to bring you a monumental press conference because significant developments relative to the APUA will be discussed at this press conference relating to water and electricity, especially taking the country on another level. And we're going to be hearing about some significant developments in this press conference. Two ministers of government are here to lead this press conference. Minister with responsibility for the APUA, Sir Robin Yearwood, and the Minister of Information, Telecommunications, Broadcasting and Information Technology, the Honourable Melford Nicholas. Without further ado, I'll hand you over to the head table to hear from both ministers and a team of technocrats who will be outlining some of the significant developments relating to the APUA.
Thank you very much, Garfield, and good afternoon, one and all. As indicated by Garfield a moment ago, this press conference has been necessitated as a result of tremendous public interest in the services that have been provided by the Antigua Public Utilities Authority. Specifically, the public is reminded that we are in the process, are in the throes of one of the worst droughts in recorded history since 1928. And as a consequence of that, it has had some impacts on the provision of water services in particular. It would be borne out too that at the start of the administration, in fact on the very day that the members of the government were sworn in a public ceremony, the Prime Minister did give an undertaking that within 14 days of coming into office, that the government would have moved to ensure that there was an increased supply of water. Back in June of 2014, the public had already begun to express a reduced supply of water. And back then, the major supplier of water services to the Antigua Public Utilities Authority, SEMCOP, had been producing as much as 3.1 imperial gallons of water per day. But the Antigua Public Utilities Authority and the government of Antigua and Barbuda were indebted to SEMCOP to the tune of approximately $22 million at that point in time. while Semcorp could have increased their water production to about 3.8 million gallons, they were not willing to do so simply because they had no undertaking from central government or from APU at that time that there was any commitment to reduce the cost, to reduce the outstanding balances. Immediate upon that realization, the Gaston Brown administration undertook negotiations with Semcorp, and having made good on its promise to liquidate the outstanding arrears and to keep its current payments on par, Semcorp had increased the capacity to the maximum $3.8 million gallons per day. But notwithstanding those undertakings, and so the Prime Minister had made good on his promise to increase the supply of water. But what we were looking at that point in time, because of the extent to which the drought had begun to bite in, as it were, the other supplies of water that APUA had coming from the aquifers and from the ground sources and from those other freshwater supplies would have been severely depleted a year onwards. And so we were now in a position where we were even more dependent on reverse osmosis driven water. Last year, I believe, in just before the winter tourist season, the Antigua Public Utilities Authority, aided by the government, did install a new reverse osmosis plant in the Pigeon Point area. And this came at an important point in time because the yachting community in the English Harbour Dockyard area had threatened to curtail their business in Antigua as a result of the lack of supply of potable water. So APU did come to the government's aid and did come to the country's and the economy's aid by being able to rectify that situation. A year onwards, and we are still dependent on production of water from these particular sources. So we are at this particular point in time where our daily demand for water is up to approximately 6 million imperial gallons per day. And that the APUA combined sources, we were grateful for the more recent rains that we achieved in September. But as a result of that, the APUA were able to get some additional production of water from the freshwater sources. We were advised that approximately 19 million gallons of water were in the catchment at the Potworks Dam, and so that has improved the combination and the yield of productive sources from which we could obtain water. But it is still not enough. Where the government is concerned, over the next 8 to 12 months, the government is putting the APU in a position to ultimately be in a position to satisfy all our daily demands of water from reverse osmosis plants. We have provided assistance to support APUA being able to get the plant at Valley Church back on the full production, and that combined with the Pigeon Point facility and combined with the facilities at Semcorp, which have now formed part of the resources that APUA has, because we have come to the end of the boot operation that Semcorp had been given that license to provide. The Semcorp plant will now transition over to the ownership, full ownership and control of APUA. We are up to about 5 million gallons per day, but it's still short of at least $1 million, 1 million gallons, I'm sorry. And in consequence, we have the challenge now of making a determination over the next few months. The new plant that is in order, my advice, speaking with the water manager who is here and will speak in greater detail, is that the plant is expected to arrive on island during the month of December. And given the period that is required for commissioning of that plant, we anticipate that by the second quarter of the next year, the plant will be fully operational, bringing into operation, giving APUA the capacity to be able to satisfy the full daily demand of the nation of Antigua and Barbuda. Now that is one aspect of the provision of services that APUA has. We as well speaking about the disruption to the electricity, and the Cabinet is aware, and I am especially aware, that social media has been replete with a number of criticisms about the planned outages of electricity. The team from APUA is here to speak to those particular requirements in respect of what has been the reason for us to have these frequent outages. and in respect of the repair and maintenance of the 69 kVA transmission system. So above anything else, the government has recognized that the road towards us becoming an economic powerhouse passes through APUA. There's going to be no achievement of our economic powerhouse vision without the full participation and the optimum participation of the Antigua Public Utilities Authority. And that is why today's press conference is so important. We recognize the need now to communicate more forcefully, more effectively on these particular issues, and I will allow and ask Minister Yearwood to speak to the particular challenge that he has as the Minister responsible for the public utilities. And beyond his presentation, I think we will ask the water manager firstly to address the issue of the particular challenges that he has, and again ask the electricity manager to address the problems that we're having with the transmission systems. And as you're aware, the government did make certain resources available to the other division of APUA, the telecoms division, to be able to change, to have a conversation, a step change conversation with the public about our broadband services in the country. And I believe the telephone manager is here as well, and the other technicians are here to provide a supporting role, including the general manager. So, Mr. Yearwood, I would ask.
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon, Antigua and Barbuda. First of all, let me introduce my management team. On my right is the general manager, followed by the water manager and an engineer, Mr. Simon. On the left, Andrew Matthias, electricity manager, chief financial officer, Roger Tung, telephone manager, Vaughn Brown. There's reason for optimism in APUA at this particular time. With the tremendous sustained support of the government, the authority has realized some strategic objectives and would have identified critical strategic pillars that will ensure improved performance in the short to medium term. As you have rightfully said, Minister, the government, through the caring Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, the Honorable Gaston Brown, made a statement, yes, that we would improve our water situation. If some people thought that as soon as we took government, the Almighty would have opened the heavens, that did not happen. Therefore, the alternative had to be found. And we found that alternative in a very short time. When we came to power, the authority was indebted to Semcorp for $22 million. As a result of owning Semcorp, and they were not paying, the then government were not paying Semcorp, Semcorp reduced the supply of water. And so the Prime Minister had discussions with Semcorp, and we had a structured system of payment, and Semcorp increased right away in August of 2004 its supply of water by 2014, sorry, by 700,000 gallons per day. So our supply was increased right away by 700,000 gallons. We didn't stay there. We bought a new 400,000 gallons, imperial gallons per day facility. This was commissioned in March 2016 at a cost of $1.7 million. Must be remembered, having had the increase of 700,000 gallons, we went ahead straight away to order a new RO plant. New RO plant in 2014, and that arrived here and was in operation 2016. I say that because some people think that you can go and buy a RO plant off the shelf. RO plants are manufactured when they're being ordered. This plant was put at Pigeon Point because of the economic activities out there with yachts, the people out there, hotels, etc. And so this plant supplied water to Falmouth, English Harbour and Piccadilly communities. Next thing that we found when we came into government, we had to correct the Camp Blizzard plant. 2 of those plants were not working, and we set about, they were out since 2013, and so if people cared about water, they would have made sure that they're fixed. The Camp Blizzard plants now are being looked at. The parts are here. The water manager will elaborate on the completion. Those plants will be put back into use before the end of this year.
One by the beginning of next year.
One
in January, the other by next month.
By next month?
Yes.
So one of the plants will be in working condition in November, and we spent $250,000 just to repair the plant that we met not working. And remember, I said our caring Prime Minister, that's what he set about to do. Gave us instructions, we must get these plants back up and running. We had the Fries Beach plant, and the number 1 unit has been out of service since 2013. We met it when we came in, out of service. Today, all the parts are there, and that should be back in working condition
Same time.
November. This is the caring government we are talking about. We had to spend $140,000 on that plant. But we had to spend money in purchasing and installation of pumps at several of the authorities' main facilities and pumping stations. Crabs pumping station, Parham pumping station, and Buckley Line pumping station. We have replaced or correct water quality issues in Seaview Farm, Vivian Richard Street, Freetown and Radio Range. We actually cleaned the bush in Potworks Dam so that in expectation that when some rain would have fallen, it wouldn't take weeks or months before we could use that water. We have 90 million gallons of water in Potworks. Yes, we use a little of it on the weekends, especially to put more water into the system. The manager would give much more details of these type of things. We just want to take you that I just came from a meeting in Trinidad, and the entire Caribbean is suffering from drought, with the exception of Dominica, Guyana and Suriname. I'm quite certain that many of you would have read where Suriname and Barbados now are negotiating to supply water by barge. They met the manager with me in Trinidad, and they were talking of supplying that water, but just at the top of our discussion, before we could go into any detailed discussions, the price that they were talking of 1,000 gallons. I wouldn't even want to mention it right now, so we leave that alone for the time being, and we're going the RO area. We go to just bring you up to date. Let me get rid of this point. When we came into office, there were no meters in the entire APUA. neither for electricity or water. None. People who had their houses constructed had to wait if they could repair old meter and to get you inside there. Meters were not working. Nothing was happening. And you're talking about APUA? We're proud down here because we've pulled it out. Just to give you, from the time we got into office, we have purchased, the operative word, we have purchased 5,470 electrical meters. You apply for electricity, time the installation, etc. have been done, you can have your meter. We have purchased for water meters 8,090 water meters. And I think, Mr. Tom, we have some in order still, and we have other meters in order. In other words, we must not be out for meters. In the electricity, our load has gone up by 1 megawatt. Our load now is roughly 54 megawatts.
Per day.
Yeah, per day. Per day. These meters would assist us that we can connect people to the grid in a timely manner. The losses on the power grid would be reduced in a significant manner with the installation of meters and services without meters for many, many years. The changing over of 1,000 meters so far for this year that were non-functional. We're doing an AMI pilot, electrical meter. The manager will explain it further to you, where you throw your money, swipe your card, how much electricity you want. So we're testing some meters on that now.
Pay as you go.
Pay as you go. So we're testing it. That will help to reduce the number of estimated services. And by the way, we're working right now to stop estimating bills. Every bill must have a reading every month. And that's our goal. And we have started doing that to make sure that we read the meters that people can be satisfied what they see. The losses on the power grid will be reduced in a significant manner with the installation of these meters. The first steps toward the prepaid metering, which would improve the cash collection of APA, that is in progress with the AMI meters. We have a 10 megawatt solar plant that was initiated by our caring Prime Minister. On December 12, 2015, the first 3 megawatts of solar plant was installed at the airport. 4 megawatts would be installed at the site close to Bethesda, and an additional 3 megawatts would be installed in government facilities around Antigua and Barbuda. The energy from this 10 megawatts solar plant would account for about 5% of energy demand in Antigua and Barbuda. The project would reduce carbon emissions by the reduction of energy from fossil fuel plants. Advanced discussion on the corporatization of the Wadadley power plant. We'd like to tell you Western Oil Company, a very profitable entity, would have 49% shares and a new corporate Wadadley power plant. Spare parts will be purchased in a timely manner to ensure the power plant produces a significant amount of energy. The corporatization will ensure that the good relationship between the governments of Antigua and Barbuda and the People's Republic of China is maintained. You will hear from the electricity manager that we're in the 69, repairing the 69 kV. And that is, for those who don't know what that is, those are the towers with the wire on top of those towers. Today, if you touch those wires, they just crumble in your hand with powder, and that gives a heavy loss. That project should have started years ago. It never. We have started it right now with the assistance of the Cuban government. 4 Cuban technicians and engineers arrived in July to assist with the maintenance work. This would reduce losses on the T&D network. In the process of purchasing, we're in the process of purchasing 6 megawatts of battery storage to assist with stabilizing the power grid. With the increased penetration of renewable energy, there's a need to complement the diesel sets in the stabilization of the grid. We have obtained a loan from the Caribbean Development Bank to replace all the 14,000 HPS street lights to more efficient LED lights. The manager will tell you when you expect to start that. The LED lights gives more light per watt than the HPS lights. The energy consumption from these lights would therefore be reduced. The carbon footprint would be decreased as a result of this replacement. The commencement and installation of 2,000 solar lights obtained from the People's Republic of China. The benefits: the lighting around the island would be improved. Lights would be placed in areas that have no electricity lines extended. If there's a total system collapse at night, there would still be lights on in certain areas around the island. So we want to say that APUA has been working for you, the people of Antigua who own APUA. Yes, we have problems, and the problems we are trying to straighten out now. We have attitudinal problem. We have our people must realize, and that's why we have this press conference today, the day before our independence, to remind our people, Antigua and Barbuda needs all of us. We must think of our country first before ourselves. And if we're going to be truly independent, if we're truly going to work together to be the powerhouse, we must be together. And so we say to our workers, you have to produce. You're offering a service to the people and the owners of APUA in this country. If you work for electricity and you see a pipe leaking, you should report it. If you work for water and you see a wire or transformer having problems, you should report it. If you work for telephone, if you work for water and you see a telephone line cut, or whatever it is, you should report it. It's your country, our country. It's not a red country. It's not blue country. It is one country, Antigua and Barbuda. And I would like to give you the assurance as the minister in charge. My management team is working tirelessly. We're coming from way back, and we're now coming forward, and we're happy that we're on the right track in getting this thing put together for the benefit of our country's development. At this time I hand over to the general manager, and who will call out his managers as he go along. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Good afternoon, everyone.
One second now. Let's just get you on the microphone here.
I would just like to capture the issues in a succinct way. I think the challenges that we hear about continuously would be the inadequate supply of water and electricity. And that would be as a result of ongoing network upgrades and maintenance programs. A reliable supply of water and electricity services have been affected. We are currently upgrading electricity distribution lines that needed upgrade years ago but could not be done because of our cash flow challenges. That has resulted in inherent power outages that have affected water production and distribution. The water rationing schedule, as a consequence, has been temporarily disrupted. I know that's posed a problem for us and you, the consumer, as well. In the meantime, we continue to increase water product volumes. In addition to the acquisition of the 400,000 gallons per day plant at Pigeon Point that has been commissioned, we will install another plant at Barnacle Point. This plant will produce an additional 2 million gallons per day. We are also poised to roll out broadband at speeds and prices that will extremely be attractive within days. We have reached an out-of-court settlement with APC. These are significant issues, significant developments for APA, resulting in major savings to the authority. APA is working hard to realize its remit as part of a broader sustainable development strategy by modernizing its infrastructure. We hear you, our customers, and we recognize that you anticipate and expect more reliable supply of services, and we just ask for your patience, because APA is on a road, the development on the road, to ensure that the offerings are much improved within the short term. Having said that, I'm going to ask Mr. Ivan Rodriguez to elaborate on the water situation currently.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Mr. Martin. The first thing I'd like to do is to just touch on the expectations, the rainfall expectation. Traditionally, the months of November and December are fairly dry months. They're not as wet as October and September. So we do not anticipate that we will get the gut showers needed to replenish or to full Potrex Dam or any of our other major water resources, surface water resources, during this period of November, December, or during the first quarter of 2017. Our expectations are that the conditions will remain dry, and even if we do get rainfall, it will probably assist our groundwater resources, but not our surface water resources, because it will generate the gut showers. With this in mind, it means therefore that we need to conserve where possible, as much as possible, and we need to use the water resources that we presently have sparingly. We also, once the desal plant come online, and the importance of desalination, once desal come online, the other plants come online, then we should be in a better position to ensure that persons have water on a 24/7 period, 24/7 basis. Because the drought has been so extensive, our groundwater resources have continued to be affected. So presently, we have had to close our well fields in Cades Bay, Claremont, take wells in Benders Valley offline, and reduce our well field capacity in Collins and Bristol Springs. This means that areas that were predominantly served by only groundwater is now being served by desalinated water, which means that the desalinated water that we have is now being spread to more and more areas, which means that there's less water available to any single community. As mentioned by the GM, whenever there's a power fluctuations or power outages, it would affect our ability to get water to the general public. We as the water business unit, we are the largest single users of power on the island. Desalination uses a lot of energy, requires a lot of energy. We're taking water from sea level, which means that we have to pump it from sea level to all homes in Antigua. There's no home that we can reach without pumping water to it, which also means that we have to use energy. The situation is that the work that the electricity department is doing is critical, and therefore there are periods when we will have to close down to allow them to do critical work that will affect us. The challenge of having having your transmission system that is not sound is that even though it might not affect a homeowner, it will affect us because of our equipment and the sensitivity of our equipment. It is to our benefit to come offline at times so that they can do their work. Otherwise, it will cause damage to our facilities if it's not corrected in a timely manner. All right? There's one source that wasn't mentioned this afternoon, and the government and the authority did negotiate to obtain use of the plant that was originally installed by Alvin Stanford on his facility. So we do have that plant also that provides something like 500,000 gallons of water on a daily basis. And that is being managed by NS Management through the receivers of the Stanford facility. So we do have that also online. The 2 million gallons per day plant, once that comes online, we should be in position to provide all Antiguans with water on a 24/7 basis. Right? I think those are the main issues that I would like to cover. Right? And I guess we'll have questions and answers after.
And now, your sibling utility, electricity, and Jay will now speak to the electricity issues.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Minister would have touched on some of the developments within the electricity business unit, but I want to address specifically the recent outages that we've been having. In fact, it actually goes before Carnival. We had some outages. Now, just to put things in perspective a bit, we have a total of 107, in terms of installed generation, we have 107 megawatt, and our peak load presently is like 54 megawatt. So one could basically deduce from that we have quite a bit of installed capacity. But what we're struggling with is firm capacity, meaning reliable capacity. I mean, to be truthful, we had some problems. We have been having some problems at WPP plant, which is the Chinese plant. Just before the Carnival also, we had a situation at APC where they suffered damage for the number 5 set at one of the power plants. APC has 2 power plants, and we lost the number 5 set in April of this year. We also lost the number 3 set at the Black Pine power plant. Now, the rule of thumb is that you must have enough generation to cover your peak load plus your 2 largest set. Our peak load now is 54. The 2 largest set is 17 meg and 11 meg. So if you have 82 megawatt, you should be comfortable. But it's 82 firm capacity. So we had struggled just before the Carnival because of those problems. APC, through their wisdom, basically had actually brought in 4 Caterpillar sets to assist them in the maintenance. Presently, they've given us, maybe the next week or so, we'll get back the number 5 set. They had to change the crankshaft. And the number 3 set, hopefully we'll be getting that by the end of the year. So we had that challenge in terms of generation just before the Carnival season. Recently, within the past 3 weeks or so, again, we have been struggling with some outages. By the way, I must say we have enjoyed reliable supply for quite a bit of time in Antigua. And I guess everybody knows the public is accustomed to reliable supply. So when there's outage, it creates a big problem. And we're very concerned about that. But recently, as Mr. Martin would have mentioned, the Minister also mentioned, Mr. Yewood, we are now doing some maintenance in the 69 kV system. Those lines have been there for over 30 years. And the minister mentioned when you actually touch the lines, they actually crumble in your hands. Now, the main problem is really we did not have the cash flow. The cash flow has been a problem in the APUA. Recently, though, we've had much more cash to do what we need to do as far as maintenance is concerned. But there's another problem. We had some issues with the union. The linesmen who climbed the towers, they had indicated that basically the pay that they were receiving to do that work wasn't sufficient. And we had a back and forth with the linesmen. That is resolved. Incidentally, we had actually constructed a company out of Canada some time ago to do that work. They first gave us a proposal for basically them coming and doing all the work. We indicated to them that no, we want our workers to be part of that program, because in case there's anything, we don't want to have to be calling in the expert all the time. We signed the contract, but because of these industrial problems that we were having, we were forced to basically suspend work. I must say it's going pretty smoothly now since we've engaged the Cubans. By the way, these Cubans, it's through the efforts of Ambassador Peter Benjamin, who is actually stationed in Cuba.
Former general manager.
Former electricity manager, former general manager. He has been able to get assistance from the Cuban government. Paid assistance, I must add, but it's slightly subsidized. And we're definitely moving in terms of fixing the line. We're actually changing about 22 kilometers of line. But what happens is because you basically, in order to maintain the line, obviously, you have to de-energize the line. And there's a lot of switching activities. And because the lines are in such a poor condition, the more you open and close, and you open feeders, close feeders, it puts a lot of stress on the line. So after a while, the line fails. But, I mean, we have a choice. Do we leave it like that and then everything fails? Or do we de-energize it, do the maintenance, so in the very near future, customers can enjoy reliable supply of electricity, what you're accustomed to? We made a decision to definitely do the maintenance. We should be completed with this line maintenance probably the third week of December. The Cubans are here working very closely with our line staff to have that completed by the end of, towards the end of December. So hopefully everything should be fine before Christmas. Now, we also have other challenges because the 6th line is one part of the TND network. But we have not been able, again, because of poor cash flow in the past, we have not been able to do the type of maintenance that is necessary on the 11 kV feeders. We have about 25 feeders, and these distributed feeders is what takes the power from the power stations and extends to the customers around the island. Now, again, with a little better cash flow, we are planning to do a lot more work in terms of maintaining the lines. What that will also do is basically improve the losses situation. We have a situation where our losses are close to 20%. I mean, that is a real high losses. And again, because we're not maintaining the lines the way we ought to, that's why the losses are that high. We are also challenged with vegetation management. That's a nice word for chichimi. Basically, we have situations where the lines, there's a fixture drive area, the line passes, in some very bad terrain. And we're working, in fact, it's becoming a challenge for us, and we have decided to contract out some of the work. In fact, we're now receiving bids for some of the areas, Fixture Drive, Fidget Squeak, and so along with the contractors, we'll be definitely increasing our efforts in terms of maintaining these lines. So yes, it's true that we're having a little more than normal power outages, but it's because of a lot of work that we're doing in terms of ensuring that the lines come back to a certain standard. I also need to mention that there's a situation every time a generator chips offline. In order to maintain a 60 Hertz cycle or match generation with load, feeders have to be de-energized. If that wasn't the case, then you'll have a system collapse. So what happens, maybe on a regular basis, if a generator chips offline, if it's like 5 megawatt, then you have to shed, and it happens automatically. 5 megawatt of feeders will come out. But then we usually have other generators to put back online, so these outages are very short. So what you find is that there's some people complain that, power comes off, it's only for 5 minutes, why you keep doing that? We do that to ensure that the system doesn't collapse, and it's not something that we go and do. It happens automatically. What we do, we have a on the frequency scheme, and basically that determines what feeder comes out first. And we, ever so often, we rotate these feeders. So I know right now, North feeder, which is, the Crosby's area, on another side of the island, they are at the top. So I constantly get calls, my power is always off. Sometimes it's always off and daily. I mean, there's some people who exaggerate a bit, no? Sometimes they say it's always off every day, and when you check the record, it's probably once in the week.
You're not saluted or not?
Okay, but I mean, even once in the week is not acceptable. So we're definitely moving to improve the reliability of electricity supply to our very valued customers. So that's as far as the outages are concerned. The Minister would have mentioned a lot of the other things that we're doing in terms of the AMI, in terms of the 10 megawatt solar project, through the efforts of the Prime Minister, the corporatization of WPP, to have that facility become more efficient, and also there's a LED changeover program. There's a loan the government would have gotten from the CDB, and basically we'll be changing out all the high pressure sodium lights to the more efficient LED lights. So there are quite a bit that we're doing. One, to keep with the technology, and also to reduce losses and improve the general efficiency of the business unit. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. There are a lot of exciting things happening in APA, and especially probably the most you'll find the most excitement in the telecoms business unit. Manager Vaughn will speak to some of his plans now.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As the General Manager just said, there are quite a few exciting things which are happening for Telecoms Business Unit. As we see, the Telecoms Business Unit, the primary focus at the moment is on broadband, which we think will be the pillar of our growth for the next few years. And recognizing the excitement which our good ministers generated out in the public with the announcements which were made previously, you do recognize that it's of tremendous concern to the public. I'm going to be a bit guarded, I guess, in some of the things that I will say, given that Telecom is operating in a competitive marketplace. But that said, just know that we're working pretty hard to ensure the announcement that the minister made comes to fruition. We've started quite a bit of work on the building out our ADSL network, which is the platform that delivers our iNet service at the moment. We have roughly 6,000 or so lines available. Sorry, let me repeat that. We have roughly 6,000 or so customers available on the network, and we have capacity currently to move up to roughly 12,000. And we've also recently added another about 1,200 service ports on the system as well. So as you can see, we're definitely building out capacity to meet the demands. We've also been building out our fiber to the home service on the north coast of the island. I guess it's a good thing, since Andrew has been taking the north side off early. We're delivering fiber to the home on that side of the island immediately.
So it's compensation.
I guess if you want to call it that. As a matter of fact, as of today, we're in a position where we are ready to be testing the fiber to the home in Hodges Bay, and very shortly after that we'll be moving to the other areas on the north coast in short order. We are intent on becoming the #1 telecoms provider on the island, and we're also looking at the other services that we deliver and trying to bring them up to speed, if you want to call it that, and surpass what our competition is offering. We intend to have the telecoms business unit be a very modern operation. As of this moment, you'd recognize, for instance, there are some challenges that we may have with our online presence, and we want to see that improved. We want to bring a number of items to the fore. But as I said, I'm going to be pretty guarded in terms of some of the things that I want to say, given that we operate in a competitive environment, but rest assured that there are some very exciting things happening within APO Telecoms, and we'll be rolling out programs shortly to the public, and probably have another press conference to go into more details on these items. So with that, I'll turn the mic over.
Let me just add that, and I'll be brief. One of the things that I think, well, with the rolling out of all of these various projects, I think what the public needs to know is that there are costs attached to them, right? The new Arrow plant will cost approximately 15 million EC dollars. The projects that the telecoms manager has outlined will cost in excess of $40 million, which will be financed between APOA and the government. In addition to that, the AMI project will be an estimated $25 million project. And then we have also... So you can understand that there's some major costs involved in the process, in the programs that we've undertaken. And in addition to that, recognizing that APOA has some structural deficiencies that we need to address, we've actually been working with the World Bank with a consultation to look at putting the authority on a sustainable path for energy and water. That process started soon after the government was in place, and it has been an ongoing process for the past 2 years, which has culminated in a strategic plan, a loss reduction study, and a tariff review, which has been submitted to Cabinet for the approval, and I'm assuming that they will advise us how we will proceed after they've thoroughly vetted those documents.
Members of the press, just before we go to the question and answer, I just wanted to reiterate that contrary to the alarm that seems to be gripping the public, that somehow that the government and APOA has dropped the ball, quite the contrary is our reality, in that we do not want to pass any cheap political blame, but the fact of the matter is what we inherited is where we had to start the program of development and restitution from with APOA. I think you've heard from the respective line managers and from the general manager and the minister responsible for APOA that the situation is certainly being managed and turned around. Some specific timelines have been given for when some of these shortcomings or discontinuities that the public is experiencing with respect to the particular services. I just really wanted to add and re-emphasize that from Barbados, you would have been aware in other aspects of the press, other areas of the press, that Barbados is in a position that Antigua was in 1984. We experience on a regular cycle over a period of a 17-year or 13-year cycle, severe drought conditions. Where Barbados is today about barging water in, for those of you who are as young as I am, would remember that we had such a situation in Antigua in 1984 where we barged water in from Dominica. St. Lucia, which is a land that has several rivers, is also experiencing drought conditions. Our neighbor St. Kitts has a particular and a peculiar and extreme drought condition and a severe curtailment of publicly provided water just next door. California, the 8th largest economy in the world, have been experienced for the past 4 or 5 years drought conditions, and they too have been in a water rationing position. So the content of many of the social media conversations that we see happening, we're not asking people to accept less than they are paying for. We are not asking people to accept mediocrity. But what we're saying to people is to have a conversation with yourself about the reality in which we all are. We did not create the drought, and certainly the less than attractive financial position that APA was left in and that we inherited was the hand and the deck that we were dealt with. And certainly we are taking the approach that we are meeting every one of these challenges, and with the support of the able team at APUA, their management and the minister, the government is ensuring that APUA gets behind the government's development objective. So even last week when the Prime Minister announced at the groundbreaking ceremony for the King George V ground that within the foreseeable future the government wants to eliminate standpipes, it was within the context of our own strategic developmental goals that the government wants to ensure that every single home has the facility of pipe-borne water. We have had certain challenges, even where there are private land developers who have not been able to put in the infrastructure to ensure that every home can be supplied with water and electricity. We want to bring the social outreach program for the government wants to ensure that we eliminate these types of conditions. But the government has recognized with sensitivity that the greater percentage of the population are concerned about the supply of water and the disruption that it has to all of our lives for persons to be able to have an adequate supply of potable water to cook, to clean, to bathe, and to do whatever the things that we do well with water. So we are mindful of it and are sensitive to the discontinuities that is caused by the incoherent supply of water. Having said that, however, our current trajectory and the development plans and the expansion plans that APUA has, and from what you have determined, been able to gather here from the management team at APUA, you would see that within the foreseeable future, and certainly within the forecast, certainly within the second quarter of 2017, whether we have an abundant supply of rainfall or not, the APUA is going to be in a position to be able to meet all of the water supply requirements for the state. What we did not disclose is that adjacent to all of the work that APUA is doing as well, Ambassador Davin Joseph, our ambassador to Japan, has been able to negotiate on behalf of the people of Antigua and Barbuda another reverse osmosis plant, and we will make further, we'll give the public further information on that as they come to hand. And this reverse osmosis plant will be more than likely installed in an area that will be able to bring some relief as well to our farming community. And so that is in addition to meeting the forecasted demand for the regular public that Mr. Rodriguez has spoken about. So the picture is not lost. And contrary to the view that Antigua is a dilapidated, decrepit, backward place, we are actually moving in position that before the end of summer next year, Antigua, amongst any other country in the OECS, and I would dare say probably CARICOM, would be the first country that would be in a position to ensure that all of our productive water facilities can be satisfied. All of our production requirement, the demand for water, can be satisfied from non-rain-driven sources. And I think that would be a tremendous accomplishment for an administration that would have been in office for only 3 years. And the turnaround that would have occurred in respect of the APUA would be something that is remarkable. So we just want to bring and highlight these developments and to underline the fact that Antiguans and Barbudans can truly feel proud. The pain that we are receiving right now for the, as they say, the disrupted supply of water is something that is common throughout many states in the CARICOM region, simply because of the way that we have developed our water production facilities over decades and decades. And the drought is a real act of God condition that we all have to traverse. But the plan of the government and the resources that we have made available and the responses from the management team and staff at APUA is going to ensure that next year, come summer, we would have overcome this tremendous hurdle. All right? Sorry. We are now available to take your questions, and hopefully we can provide you with the answers that you need.
Justin Peters, Caribbean Times. With regards to Justin Peters, Caribbean Times. With regards to the reverse osmosis plants, have adequate storage facilities also been considered for the plants, so that we can store water adequately to supply?
Yes, in 2008, the government of Antigua had negotiated with the Venezuelans government, and through PDVC had received a grant for over $8 million. A part of that grant was for the installation of water storage tanks. We have installed, there were 3 water storage tanks under that project. We have installed those tanks already. We have installed a 4th at St. Philip's, and there are 2 other tanks that we presently will be installing, one for this project on the location of this project on the project site, and 2 others, new plant, a new RO plant, water storage tank for St. Philip's, for Fry's Beach, and one for the English Harbour area. And one for St. Philip's not.
What will be what will be the storage capacity once?
Yes, one for Collins. Pardon me?
What will be the storage capacity once we've installed all the storage facilities, and what about Barbuda?
The total storage, each of these tanks would have a capacity of 500,000. Right? Those are the size of tanks. They are glass fused to steel tanks, and they've already been purchased. There are 2 tanks that need to be disassembled and reassembled in a separate location. 2 tanks were donated to the authority by the brewery, and they're presently on the brewery's compound, so those will be disassembled and reassembled elsewhere. Barbuda, there's a tank that will be installed in Barbuda, an additional tank. It would be installed on the system to allow them to have more storage, so that in case of an emergency situation, then they would have water until the point where power or the plant can be repaired and put back in service. Okay, there is also a plant, a reverse osmosis plant in Barbuda. For a long period of time, the water quality in Barbuda was not suitable, was for consumption. So it was used mainly for washing and for other uses, and not for drinking. The new plant, the new seawater reverse osmosis plant was installed, and that was commissioned earlier this year, and it now provides 100,000 impure gallons of water a day.
Excellent. Okay, and with regards to the recent agreement that you formed with APC and the savings that
That's electricity.
Oh, well, yes, the GM can answer that.
Yes.
My question is, will the savings be passed on to the consumer?
I hope so. Well, everybody's aware that
in 2007, there was a joint venture proposal between ourselves and APC that ended up in a court resolution and a decision that went in favor of APC. And what we did, we negotiated an out-of-court settlement that was recently ratified by our board and validated by cabinet on Saturday. Details of which we will finalize and make public in short order.
All right, and my final question is with regards to redundancy when power goes out for the plants. You have indicated that the plants require a great deal of energy to run. So what provisions have been made in case of
water?
Yeah, that's water. Yeah. So what provisions have been made in a situation where we have an extended loss of power?
Okay, APOA is one entity, is one body. The power that we're talking about is not the kind of standby generator kind of power. It is serious power. The plant at Semcorp is 3 megs. That is 3 times the capacity of Barbuda. The plants at Fry's and Pigeon Point and at Camp Blizzard are over a meg. Right, that is also that's about double what Barbuda figure is. Yes. Okay. Now it's like generating electricity, the business unit within the water business unit. Those funds are better served improving the efficiencies of the electricity business unit. What has happened is that through the Environment Division and through the government, we are looking at alternative energy for these facilities, and there's a project, and I'm sure that it was made public by the Environment Division that in short order they will be installing alternative energy standalone systems at these plants so that we can use less of the grid energy and be more independent. So that with the batteries and so on, you'll be able to, when power goes, have a supply.
Okay, excellent.
One more. Somebody going to add to you.
Just to add to the situation with the electricity supply to the water plants, we basically have the water plants as priority. They're on priority feeders. Okay, what happened recently though, there was an incident, I think it's last week Wednesday. Due to the work that we're doing with the 69 kV line, there's a particular 11 kV circuit that feeds the water plant at Crabs that we had to de-energize to work on the 69. Now, normally, that will only be de-energized for the period that we're doing the work. But we had some challenges with the breaker. So there was an extended period of outage. And that's why I think the water department is still recovering now from that outage, because it lasted basically almost 2 days.
Sunday to 55 hours.
55 hours, more than 2 days. But what we're doing now, we're basically putting certain things in place to be able to, even when we're working at that line, we'll basically feed one of them, we'll feed our plant from a generator, a very old generator we have there, which we haven't used for a while, but we're basically, maintaining it so we would not have that outage to the water department. As was said, we are all in one APOA, and we have to ensure that the water supply is not affected by these power outages.
Good afternoon, Garfield Burford, ABS. A number of questions for electricity. Right, so you can move back. In relation to the work on the 69 kV line, that seems to not just be affecting the electricity unit, but it's also affecting water as well, because they depend on you. Do you think enough preparatory work was done ahead of the start of work on the 69 kV line? In other words, did you put everything in place to ensure that water would have been fully aware, the general populace would have been fully aware, and all the efforts would have been put in place to ensure that you mitigate the dislocation as much as possible?
Yes, we plan, but sometimes things don't work out the way you plan it. Now, the 69 kV system, we have a ring system. So normally, if you take out a part of the ring, it should not affect any customer, because it means that each substation has the capability of being backfed from another direction. But what has happened, when you de-energize the circuit, okay, you have to open feeders and you have to open the line, and then you close back the line. As I mentioned before, the constant on and off basically puts a lot of stress, electrical stress on the line, and it's all already. So we're having outages that we would not have anticipated. So it's not so much that we have not done the planning. We have done the planning, but a lot of things that's happening now we would not have anticipated. And while we're on the 69 kV, if I don't get a chance again, I really want to commend the workers, the linesmen who are really working. I mean, if you go, the press was there sometime last week, and basically see, the type of work that they do, the risk that is involved. So I really want to, even though we've had some issues in terms of the union, at the end of the day, everything is resolved. So I want to commend the linesmen from APA and also the Cubans who are assisting, because I really think they're doing tremendous work to ensure that customers' power will become reliable again.
Right. In relation to the outages, are 100% of the outages as a result of the work on the 69 kV line?
No.
To what extent is this work affecting the outages?
Recently, probably 60%. Recently. But as I mentioned also, what happens is that we have had some generation, and this happens in all utility. You have generation outages. But anytime a generator comes offline, feeders have to be de-energized to maintain that balance between load and generation. Because a 60 Hz cycle depends on, basically the generation provides the load plus losses. So assuming the loss is zero, I told you earlier it's not zero, but for the purpose of this discussion, if you have 50 megawatt of load, then you expect to have about 50 generation. So if you lose 10 megawatt of generation, it means then that the generation cannot supply the 50 meg load. So we have to in turn cause 10 megawatt of load to be de-energized to maintain a 60 Hz cycle. Right, yes. What had happened, and as mentioned before, when we had a situation where APC had some problems with the number 3 set and number 5 set, and I have to mention WPP, which is the Chinese built power plant, that's definitely having some issues. So we were challenged before. I know APC to sort of assist the whole situation. They would have brought in a total of 8 megawatt of Caterpillar power, rented power, to sort of bridge the gap while they're doing maintenance on the bigger sets. So we've had various issues, but very soon everything would be rectified. I mean, I'm not saying that we're going to go to 100% reliability and there's no outage, because as you realize, an outage could be caused by various reasons. A car hitting on a pole, which is very common, trees touching the lines, de-energizing the circuit. The protective devices that we have, they're there to protect life and property. So if there's a fault, it's better for the line to be de-energized and protect life than to keep it energized and put people's life in danger. So, we want to minimize the outages, but obviously you cannot eliminate them totally.
My final question on electricity is, you mentioned some of these unscheduled outages and the extent to which you were not aware of some of the problems. So some of the problems that have been experienced, which have led to outages, were not anticipated, right?
I don't know if I said I wasn't aware. What I said...
No, you did not anticipate some of the problems.
Okay, right, correct.
Right, okay. Going to the third week of December then, you said by then you're expecting the work to finish and by then there should be more reliable power.
Right.
Right. Between now and then, what do you then say to customers who have the inconvenience of dealing with these outages? What are you putting in place to mitigate the extent to which these outages affect customers?
Well, in terms of the planning, because as I mentioned, in terms of when we do work on the 69 line, normally you don't expect outages because of the ring system that we have. But the constant stress on the system is causing these outages. Now, it's kind of hard to determine the amount of stress that is being placed on the line and what line will actually go after a while. But what we'll be doing a more detailed survey of the existing lines to see if there are any spots. We use infrared cameras to look at hot spots to see if we could actually adjust these problems, because the condition might not have been like that when we started the work, but it could be aggravated now that these constant stresses. So we're basically checking the line to make sure we can adjust these problems before they actually happen. So we're working to see what we could do in anticipation of certain problems and try to solve it before it happens to ensure that customers can get reliable power.
And is it fair to say, finally, I did say finally, but is it fair to say that all of this had been done before? In other words, some of the problems that you're experiencing now, that you would not have experienced them? How much did you anticipate?
Well, to be fair with you, we have not done any significant maintenance on the 69 line. I mean, I think the minister would have mentioned that these lines were there since 30 years ago, over 30 years ago. And we have not done any. I mean, when you hold the lines, they crumble in your hand. Yeah. So the experience in changing the line, we don't have it. In changing the lines. In fact that we brought in the Cubans to assist us. So and some areas that we thought were good turned out to be real bad. When the line is energized, you would imagine 69 kV. You really cannot get close to the line to do a detailed analysis. And then again, you have the towers, the tower span. You cannot get in between the tower to look at the entire line. So there's a certain amount of survey that you can actually do on the line. Okay? We would have done certain surveys, and basically these surveys really reveal that the line, in some areas good, in some areas bad, in some areas real poor, and we try to address that. But when you actually start the work, you realize that sometimes in some areas it's worse than what you thought. And some areas, I'll tell you, our initial plan was to change the 69 line between Crabs to Lavington, Lavington to Sweets, Sweets to Belmont. It might make much sense to you. But what we realize now is that the section between Crabs and Casada, there's a portion of it that is real bad. So we basically now going to have to maybe suspend some of the work on that original circuit, because what we realized that part of the circuit, which we thought were real bad, turned out not so bad, and kind of shift the emphasis on the Crabs to Casada. Okay, the lines also will move into a conductor, all aluminum conductor, which the lines we have before. Basically, because of their location, you have situation with the weather adversely affecting the lines. We move to all aluminum conductor, which are more resistant to the elements of the weather.
Will it get worse in terms of the outages? Will it get worse between now and the third week of December, or pretty much this is as bad as it will get?
Well, you will expect me to say yes, no? We're definitely trying to minimize the outages. We're definitely trying to do that.
All right. On the telecoms, You did say that you'll be pushing for to ensure that the minister's commitment about the $75 EC for 10 megs will become reality. When will that materialize?
We were working towards getting. Well, I'll tell you what it is that we're doing right now. The way the network is built, and I'm sure everybody probably knows, we're purchasing capacity off island from our present competitors. And truth of the matter is we're trying to get that resolved at the moment. And once that is resolved, then we'll be able to offer the additional capacity. I don't want to speak to the rates and stuff like that, but I'll say as much as we are working very hard to reach the target that was set by the minister.
But no timeline?
The difficulty with speaking to the timeline is because, as I said, we're in negotiations now with our suppliers, but the expectation is that it will happen in the very near future, within a couple of weeks.
A couple of weeks?
Yes.
Okay. On a broader, more fundamental point, I mean, you're competing against multilaterals, multinational companies, in the case of Digicel and Flow, one of which, for example, was bought out recently through Cable and Wireless by Virgin Media, who's seen as a cable cowboy. In other words, mass investments, they have pretty deep pockets. How realistic is it that you can really compete against these big boys in the market generally? And is it realistic that you're going to maintain the same level of technology and the outlay in terms of what you're able to offer to customers as they are able to?
Well, if you look at the history from APUA, we were pretty much the first one to bring GSM into the market. And had it not been for certain cash flows, we would have also been the first to bring 3G, 4G into this market as well. I mean, we started that project first. Unfortunately, due to cash flow, as we was mentioned in a number of situations, we could not complete that. So if you look at history, I mean, we have demonstrated that we can compete with the likes of my competitors, well, not mentioned. If you also look at the track record in terms of our iNet product, even given our difficulty in terms of cash flows, I'm sure you would admit that the service that we offer is at least on par with the others. If not, I would definitely say it's better than what they're offering. So based on that alone, I mean, you can see that there's certain advantages that we have and we can make use of, and we definitely can compete with them, and you will see that in the not too distant future.
Even though no timeline on the 10 megs matter.
I did say to you within a couple of weeks.
All right. One final question to the FC.
Sure.
On the matter of the capital outlay that will be needed, because certainly on all three business units there will be significant capital expenditure needed. Has that been done in terms of an aggregate figure for over the medium to long term, an outlay that will be needed for that?
Yes, we have arrived at an aggregate amount that we need. Yeah, we definitely have arrived at an aggregate amount that we need. One of the things that we'll be doing now that we have started to become more cash flow has improved, we have been looked at more favorably with the commercial banks, and in addition we intend to tap into concessionary loan funding. So that will piggyback on our present consultation with the World Bank, where we will be looking at making the structural changes that will make us more favorable to the World Bank to provide us with concessionary funding.
Part of the capital outlay includes changing out, for example, the pipe infrastructure for the water, on the water side?
Correct.
How bad is the loss from that now?
It's actually estimated to be about 30 to 40% losses at this point.
And that compares with the market how?
In the region of 15%.
Industry maybe about 20.
15%.
In Caribbean? No, it varies from Trinidad with about 75%. I think.
Loss?
Yes. In Bahamas it was 65. They have recently received funding and they're reducing it. They're presently at 40. Curacao probably has the best system in the Caribbean, but in the Caribbean it ranges from anything like about 60 at the bad end down to 40, 50. That's not.
Below 30 is a market of what you do. Where you aim to go below 30.
What we are hoping that within the next 2 years we'll get it down below 20. Because we're presently doing an non-revenue water project. We are going to be doing a WAP with Belize. Hopefully that was discussed during the meeting that I just came from, the ministerial meeting with the minister. And hopefully through CAWASA, Caribbean Water Research Association, we will be completing our water operators partnership with Belize. Once that is finalized, then we'll be working with the Belize water utility to get operators from that facility to come and to train our people so that we can further reduce our non-revenue water.
And you're going to change to PVC pipes perhaps out there?
We are already using PVC. Most of the maintenance that we do is with PVC pipes. Most of our non-revenue is caused through billing and meters and other stuff is commercial losses, right? We do have some real losses in terms of leaks and so on, and that is, we're going to be upgrading service lines. We have recently changed our service materials. We're going now to plastics and polyethylene. We originally were using galvanized steel. We had moved from galvanized steel to brass, but we're still not satisfied with what we're getting from that type of material. So we have moved from that to polyethylene. Once you have joints, the more joints you have in a pipe, the more susceptible you are to leaks. So we're going to pipes now where you weld them together so you don't have joints.
Thanks.
Theresa Gordon, Observer Media. Minister Yearwood, this question is directly for you. According to information posted in this week's cabinet notice, government has decided to an out-of-court settlement with the Antigua Power Company. I'm not too sure if you already addressed that.
No, we have in concept an agreement, but I would not like to speak on this topic until it's signed. The team will be meeting after independence to finalize the agreement, and once it's finalized there, the minister will organize how he want to plan. He's the minister to deal with information, to advise me how to deal with it, whether in a forum like this, or he wants me by myself to say, or just the team and myself to say about it. But we have had the permission from the cabinet to go forward in what we had spoken with APC about. But we are going to have an agreement. In concept, we have an agreement, but as it says, nothing happens until the fat lady sings. We want to see the signature. And when the signature comes, you'll get all the details, my dear.
Oh, Mr. Chong, did you give me the figure for the area figure? The capital outlay?
We provided, it has been arrived at, I think it's provided.
So you prefer to?
We provided, I don't have the full figure.
Okay.
Provided to you.
Are you confident that it can be gained, can be sought?
Yes. We're working with the government. There are two factors to procuring the financing, the support of the government and the government guarantees. Central government has agreed, the cabinet has agreed to guarantee the loans that we will be working to access. And then, of course, with regard to the concessionary funding, we'll be working with the World Bank to take those funds.
Minister,
do you have any questions?
If we don't, I would like to express heartfelt thanks to each of you and to ABS in particular for broadcasting these proceedings live. I'm hoping that the continuation and use of the information and the distillation of the information to our respective publics, I think they need to know. But if it is one thing that I would want to emphasize, I can't ask you to do your work, but it is clear, it should be clear that the resources that are being applied at the APUA and the tremendous work that the management and staff at the APUA are doing, supported by the minister and by the cabinet, is to ensure that the ability to give APUA a refreshed ability, a retooled ability to be able to meet its mandate, and the fact that many of the problems that we're now traversing have been in existence for a long time, that the 69 kVA plant has never been maintained. A stitch in time saves 9. The fact that we are now trying to use technology to overcome a historical drought cycle, to be able to put us on a sustainable path such that we no longer have these particular conditions. It's quite unfortunate that both developmental parts are occurring at the same time, and one is affecting the other. But I would want to, again, allay the concerns of the public that contrary to the common fear that our country is being wasted and we have become, a laughing stock, that we can no longer expect to achieve the vaunted position of becoming an economic powerhouse. We certainly think that in order for us to accomplish that, it has got to be done at every single aspect of our public undertakings, and the Antigua Public Utilities Authority is an important road through which we have to pass. And so the government has given a lot of support, and you would have heard directly from the management team themselves that they are now in a much better financial position than they were when we came to government, and that we will continue to support the efforts of the Antigua Public Utilities Authority to ensure that when the new development wave comes next year, when we begin to see expansion of our own economic circumstances, that APUA is in a much better position to play its role in supporting the expanded hotel sector, the expanded business, the expanded homes. All these new lovely homes that we're building are going to require new facilities, new utilities, and that APUA is going to be in a much better position to meet those expected new demands. So again, once again, thanks for coming, and we are going to be available beyond now. If you still have any points to clarify, I'm sure that the team that is here will make themselves available at the appropriate point to you. And I'm satisfied that Mrs. White here will facilitate all of the communications internal to APUA, and I continue to remain available to you through the normal channels. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I got it right? It's Flory, right?
Right there you go. Thanks very much for joining us right here on ABS TV 10 and ABS Radio 90.5 FM for that press conference here at the APUA headquarters. Significant developments announced certainly on the three business lines that the APUA does: water, electricity, and telecoms. Certainly on the water side, it was noted that to a large extent they're impacted by what happens on the electricity side. On the electricity side, saying much of the power outages have been as a result of the situation with the 69 kilovolt line network, that ring around the island being worked on, being improved. It was noted that that hasn't been maintained for a number of decades, and as a result the lines have been poorly deteriorated, have been significantly deteriorated. So they're saying that by the third week of December we should see a significant improvement in the reliability of the power grid, the reliability of electricity supply. Until then, the electricity business unit saying that they're doing their best to ensure that those outages are curtailed as much as possible. And on the telecom side, a bit of a guarded response on the matter of the 75 EC dollars for 10 megabits. It is noted that that will happen. It will materialize in short order. But the telecoms unit saying that it depends on a few other variables, but they're assuring the public that will happen. That's it for our broadcast here. Thanks very much for joining us on TV, on radio, and online. I'm Garfield Burford. Is back to studios.
Back to our control.
They took it at a time, right? They took it at a time.
Maybe. If you know, if you
Covered. It was nice when I was...
I already have those.
Today, sorry, today.
Oh, and what's your position for it?
So that's something
Communications.
The president to take away the instruments of something from these ministers and something. General.
The word like in cabinet, like the industry. No, so I lost the word.
No, it's
that was it.
I didn't even look essentially. I probably didn't pick that up. No, but I saw the cost of it.
No, right now, Bahamas was 65.
Yeah. I thought 20% that I saw as well. The was at the 20%. And he said the standard was 10. And there's no 8 something in the conclusion. But that's good. I saw it. Yeah, but it's not in the report. No, I didn't see that. I mean, I'm not saying it's not there, but I don't remember seeing it. I know I saw a figure. Yeah, it's saying it.
It's actually wrong.
Hello? Yeah. So it's Chloe, right?
Yeah, we're trying to have
I think we've spoken, but I don't think we've actually.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, it's not. That's okay. Good to see you. Good to see you. Yes, man. So it's supposed to be material here. Switch off.
Now I understand why I had that.
I'm looking on So how did they say they received the quality of the platform?
I haven't been able to touch base with them yet, but I think so far I haven't really been.
Yeah, you just got to do the call.
Right. Exactly. Take care. Yes, man. All right, no problem.
Yeah, trying to find out how everything went on the end. Okay, Mr. Okay then.
Where you going now? Patient tall.
Everything went fine on the door then. Yeah, Antigua.
Hey, they recorded over there.
I'm not sure
because Ricky called me and asked me what we record on.
Well, we have the two SD cards. We have the two SD cards.
With the SD cards in them.
So we can just.
At the very least, we have that.
Huh?
At the very least, we have that.
They said everything went okay on that.
Well, hope I'm getting my flowers.
Which flowers? You need the flowers that you work a month and you get paid.
No.
Month and you get paid. You pay a month then?
I'll get blood with it.
When the money go to the bank?
Am I right, son?